Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft and more. My name is Edith and joining me from across the pond is former psychologist, journalist and explorer of the paranormal, Maxim Furek. Hello Maxim and welcome to Book Lovers Companion.
Well, hi, Edith. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm just so excited to be able to talk to you across the Atlantic. And this is just so, just so exciting. So, yeah, I'm very, very thrilled to be here.
Thank you for making time for me and for our show. And it's lovely to have you on. And like we said before, thank goodness for the technology that makes it happen. So we can talk. Although you said before we started the recording that your ancestors just came from next door. You're a neighbor.
Yeah, I am. And not a whole lot of people know this, certainly not stateside, but my grandfather, I was named after my grandfathers. My grandfather, Maxim, was Ukrainian. My grandfather, Vencel Furek, was Czechoslovakian. So Maxim Vencel Furek is my name, although nobody ever calls me that. So, but that's my ancestry. And I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, where there's a lot of Polish and Slovak people, and German, and also we live in we're snowbirds. We also spend winters in Florida, so it's a great lifestyle, and it's wonderful for an author such as myself just to be inspired and motivated to write.
Oh, I can imagine that. And my first question is, when and how did you start having an interest in the paranormal?
Interesting. I'm a baby boomer, and our group, at least in this, well, I guess it was worldwide. We were born between 1946 to 1964, and we were the empowered generation. We were going to save the world and change the world. We were the idealistic group. But I was raised, my my generation was raised with a heavy dose of things like Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and Thriller and all of those wonderful television programs. Certainly, Twilight Zone had a political message because, to get around the sponsors, they would have politicians as space creatures. So there was a underlying political or racial message that they were to get past the censors, but we did that through science fiction. So, we were all raised with that. And I think all of us are, knowledgeable about the supernatural, about demons and witches and flying saucers and just the whole thing. So it's just exciting and wonderful. And I approach this as an academic. What is it? Why do all these people are so passionate about finding this, these true believers. So, I don't consider myself a zealot, but I consider myself an academic. I'm just looking for some answers, along my own path.
Has it to do with your background as a psychologist, finding out what and why people are so interested in the supernatural or paranormal?
I don't think so. I don't know if that lends itself to it. Maybe it does, but I think just like my unique DNA does. I'm just interested. And as Dalai Lama said, there are many roads lead to the same place. Well, I take that academic road. And for example, like my latest book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, there's a lot of people searching for Bigfoot that believe. They are unwavering in believing that Bigfoot is a creature that exists. Well, they call it flesh and blood. And my premise is this: if it's not flesh and blood, then what is it? So I look at things like Einstein's wormhole theory. Einstein back in the 30s proposed that maybe we find that maybe there's a wormhole where we take this space-time continuum and fold it, and then rather than space brothers going trillions of light years from point A to point B, maybe they could go and shapeshift through this wormhole through different dimensions and just come from their dimension to ours, a parallel universe. So that would take microseconds. So my theory, again, supported by people like Einstein, John
Mhm.
Keel, Jacques Vallée, is that Bigfoot and flying saucers are interdimensional. And don't ask me how they do it or what frequency or what the road is. I don't know. But I
Mhm.
just think that that interdimensional theory makes more sense than the intergalactical theory that they're
Mm.
flying from through space. I mean, I don't think anybody has that speaking of
Mm.
technology, has that technology to traverse the universe. Just would take too much time, too much energy, and I don't think that anybody has that. So again, the
Mm.
interdimensional theory is the one that I talk about. And again, imagine this: of all the theories we have out there, the one that seems to make the most sense is one that was not it was discovered by Einstein. It was an earlier theory that he reworked. So the theory we're talking about, the predominant theory that I know of, came from the 1930s. So,
Mhm.
where's the academic
Mhm.
community? Where's the theories and hypotheses that we can go and look at? There
Yeah.
aren't any. So, yeah, other
Okay.
than back then.
Mhm. And you just mentioned your book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. It came out in August 2024.
Yeah, it's only been
Yeah.
out for like maybe 3 months, at that. Yeah.
Mhm. And what can you tell our listeners about your book? Tip a little bit
Yeah,
into
well,
it for us?
absolutely. I'd love to. Yeah. Well, thank you. I hope there's some Bigfoot or Sasquatch, listeners out there. But again, uh, my premise is, if it's not flesh and blood, what is it? So I take a look at the interdimensional theory. I look at Carl Jung's, I believe he was an Austrian psychotherapist, talked about the collective unconscious, that maybe what we see, what we perceive, the fears, that's what we have in our amygdala, may be residue from our caveman ancestors that stays with us in our DNA, in our genetics. So that's one theory. Possibly mass hallucinations. I mean, we don't know. All we know is that with Bigfoot, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of witnesses. There are foot tracks. They have foot casts that they've made that are larger than human beings or bears. The stride is larger than any bear or human being. There are smells that are unique to Sasquatch, sounds that they have recorded, um, all of that. So, although the scientific community doesn't accept that as proof, and again, we don't have any DNA and we don't have a body, but yet there is proof. What John Keel would talk, high strangeness. So, an eyewitness is one thing, but when you couple that with smells and sounds and the footprints, then there's something there, something that gets my attention, and something that says there, again, there's something of that is tangible there. So my book takes a look at some of these alternate theories, and the book also has a thing. This is pretty unique to I think, to your book listeners. I don't know, but it has a thing called IBT. It's called Immersive Book Technology. And throughout the book, there are barcodes. So if you were to take your phone, the camera, and look at the barcode, there will be a video of me doing a synopsis of the chapter. So these barcodes are throughout the book. And I believe this is unique to I think, to the publishing industry. And Hanger One publishers, they're my publishers, they are, sort of at the forefront of this. So it's just amazing that they have this technology, and I just love it. So I've been getting a lot of complimentary responses to this immersive book technology.
Do you think that this interest or this belief, like you say, in the paranormal and also in Bigfoot has something to do with us as humans being drawn to the primeval? Like you said, to this part of our past we can't let go of?
Well, I think it's the times. We've always lived in chaotic times, so that's a given. I mean, there's no there's no time on earth when we were free from war and famine
Mm,
and political dissent and this division and everything. So it seems to be more profound after COVID
mm,
with the political climate, certainly in the United States. I mean, it's like brother versus brother. I mean, there's a war going on. I mean, you don't talk
yeah,
politics because we don't know how to civilly talk politics,
yeah.
so there's a lot of people with guns too. So it gets a little bit violent. But I think that maybe with all this chaos, I think that looking at the paranormal and exploring that is a safe place to go. It's there's a lot. You find your tribe, you find your
Mm,
fellow believers, people that have shared values, and you go there and you investigate that terrain, and it's sort of a safe place to be. That maybe isolates you a bit from the chaotic world that we live in. So I mean, it's sort of a therapy. It's
mm,
a survival mechanism. It's a it really is a therapy. And even in my book, I talk about, is Bigfoot the new religion?
mm,
And I talk about how, again, with my group, the baby boomers, they compared us boomers with Generation Z. Now, Generation Z is our youngest group. They were born after 1997, and they're around 27 years old. My group, baby boomers, when they did a survey, and 64% of us believed in organized religion,
mm.
and yeah, uh, only 42% of Generation Z believed in organized religion and went to church. So, something has changed. So I contend in my book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I believe that man is a spiritual creature, made in the image of God. And I don't want to get into this and, upset anybody, but I believe that if you don't express, I think we have to express that spirituality in some way. So if you don't express it by going to church every Sunday, then there may be other ways. And for some people, they go out into the woods looking
Mm.
for Sasquatch, and there's their higher power, their sacrament, their sacrifice, their brethren, all that. It has all it not clicks off all the boxes. And I've had some pushback on that by some religious right
Mm.
people that didn't like what I was writing. But I mean, it is the truth. I'm sorry, but uh, people aren't going to church like they used to for whatever reason. For whatever reason. So well, it's not my fault.
No,
It's not Big
absolutely,
Fault's fault either.
no, absolutely not. I mean, maybe it's just organized religion.
Yeah.
People are not keen of.
Well, no, and again, I don't know how it is in Germany, but in the United States, you have a lot of very slick, sophisticated, good-looking preachers that are multimillionaires, and they go around in limousines and
Yeah.
airplanes, and I mean, they live in mansions. They're collecting money from the poor people, the working class. So
Y-
that's
Yeah,
that's another that's another thing that upsets a lot of us.
yeah. Yeah, I do understand. Since you mentioned Europe compared to what's possible in the United States, I mean, it's the best place to, found your own religion. You couldn't do that in Europe. We often talked about the Tigib and I say the best place to get rich and found a religion is the United States.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we do have those free churches that came from the United States to Europe, but they are, on the margins. They are not in the center.
Yeah.
In the center, they're still the old, uh, traditional churches like Catholic Church or the Protestant churches,
Mm.
although their influence is dwindling, but they are still there. They're still the main attraction and the main power, so to speak, religion wise. So it would be hard for a preacher like in the United States, just to f- to get his following. It's not that easy. Yeah, especially from the States to be acknowledged as a religion. It's a bit more
Right.
difficult here.
Right. In southern United States, it's my understanding that you could go and start a congregation if you have as little as 25 people. So in places like Oklahoma and Mississippi, you'll find these tiny, tiny little congregations, like the First, Baptist
Yeah.
Church of Mississippi or whatever. I mean, they're all over the place, and and I don't know. I guess there's a need for that, but whatever. I don't want to, get into a battle with organized religion. I'm just saying that, there's a lot to not like. There's a not
Yes.
to lot, and there's a lot of disparity there between, the haves and the have-nots, and some of these people that are a bit hypocritical. So yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending the traditional churches, because the Catholic Church and also the Protestant churches have a lot to answer for. It's just how it is. I mean,
Mhm,
and sometimes you do feel glad that it's not that easy here, because
mhm,
know the enemy. We know our enemy, or we know our churches, and we know the good and the bad and the ugly.
yeah, yeah. I
You
do
know.
want to say this because I don't want to come across as this anti-religious anything, but uh, like I said, I spend winters in Florida and
Yeah.
summers in Pennsylvania. I did a presentation called Catholic Mysticism in
Hmm.
Florida and another one in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Both times we had over 100 people that attended.
Hmm.
And I talked about people like Padre Pio with the
Hmm.
stigmata.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talked about St. Teresa of Avila, the
Yeah.
17th century Spanish mystic who I
Yeah.
love, who said that through prayer and meditation we could levitate, reach states of ecstasy and rapture. And I
Hmm.
talked about all of this stuff. And, Catholics hunger for this because the church doesn't talk about this. They think that those of us who talk about this stuff are somehow insane or we're needy or, we're in need of healing or whatever. Well, you know what? I talk about Catholic mysticism the same way I talk about Bigfoot. I'm intrigued, I'm
Yeah.
interested, I'm an academic. So, but, if I had the time, I would write a book called Catholic mysticism because it's just phenomenal. And even with Padre Pio, I don't know if your listeners know the story about him, but he was this Italian priest, and he bled the wounds of Christ. And the priest came there. They put gauze around his wrist and watched it for something like 6 or 7 days, and then took the gauze off. They were looking for signs of healing to show that Padre Pio was human, just like the rest of us. And it wasn't there. It wasn't scabbing over. He was still bleeding, and the church didn't know what to make of Padre Pio because thousands of people are going to his church to either see the stigmata or to have him hear their confession, and the church didn't know what to make of it. They thought he was a con artist. They thought he was just delusional and was able to convince the people that he was, saying the truth. But I mean, they didn't know what to do with him. So yeah, anyway. But that Catholic mysticism is a very, very personal topic for me, and I love doing
Mm.
it. So,
Hmm. It's probably because then they might lose the power over the people. Maybe that's also the reason why they are always very skeptical of, saints and mystics and such people.
mhm. Well, there
And
are.
not saying that I'm a religious person, which I'm not. But like you, I find it absolutely fascinating and interesting why people would follow of such, mystics and so on. From also, like, again, from a psychological point of view, from an academic point of view, it's always interesting to find out what is it that draws your average person to such people. What is it? What is behind that?
Well, all of the great visionaries and the prophets, tell us that the answer resides within. We have the answer.
Mm.
We know. I mean, we have that sense and that gift and whatever that is. I mean, so we know where we need to go. We just follow our hearts. But most of us, I think, don't have the confidence or the courage to do that. So we
Mm.
follow other people and we follow these leaders. They think that they have the answers. They'll keep us safe. Certainly, and if we could just, take a look at politics in the United States, we had a choice of either, Kamala Harris was giving us a new vision and joy, and Donald Trump was giving us the
Mm.
fear. Trump was saying, if you don't vote for me, all these bad things are going to happen. And he listed like 25 of them. What happened was people voted to avoid the fear rather than to go and embrace the joy. So fear is a reptilian, primal emotion, and people like Donald Trump, people like religious leaders realize that fear is a motivator. So if you could get in there and make the people afraid, they'll go and they'll follow you. So that's the key. That's the trick, because we all have that fear. So that's what happened. And it's nothing beyond that. It's nothing beyond that. It was just that, and I'll argue or debate that with anybody. I don't think you can, I don't think there was any reason other than that. But anyway, fear is the thing that that people use to control us. The puppet masters.
Yeah, absolutely. On a more upbeat matter.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. No.
Turning off your program. Oh no.
No. Don't worry. It is always interesting to hear thoughts from people from the United States. I mean, we can talk about and wonder a lot here in Europe, but hear it from you is always interesting. But what I was wondering, since you said fear and so on, like I said, on a more upbeat. Fear also, I mean, reading about the paranormal, not just when you say you are interested in a way from an academic point of view, which I do get, like I said, but there is also the thing of looking at fear from the fiction author's perspective. So what is it that makes us enjoy the thrill, the fear, when we read about the paranormal, horror, and such things? What is it that draws us to these kinds of stories that give us a shiver or want to put the duvet over our heads in the night when we read that?
Yeah. Well, we all have that monster under the bed or that monster that's in the closet. And I think by watching horror movies, it sort of gives it a beginning and end. It lets us watch vicariously, and it's a safe way to experience that horror. Now, I enjoy the old classic black and white, monster movies, but I don't like the ones like Saw, which are what do they call that? I think horror porn, which is just like to watch
horror porn,
to cut out the eye or whatever. And there was one, Hostel, that supposedly was shot in Slovakia. That was Quentin Tarantino, I believe, but it was shot maybe over in the Czech Republic. But that was another one where, but just horrific. So I think by watching that, you get a vicarious thrill. My wife does not like horror movies, but I do. And many times I'll go to the theater and sit there by myself, and I want to get scared. And I especially enjoy some of like The Nun or The Conjuring. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were Roman Catholic demonologists, and they were responsible for the Conjuring franchise. Now, in America, The Conjuring, Conjuring 1, Annabelle Comes Home, The Nun, all of these, there's 9 motion pictures that brought in $2.1 billion. The Conjuring franchise is the highest grossing horror franchise, and it was based on Ed and Lorraine Warren. I met them in 1988. They were on a 15-city book tour. So I took pictures of them. I talked to them. I stayed in contact with them. And I would call up Ed Warren and say, how did you do battle with these demons? And Ed Warren would say that he would go and evoke the spirit of Jesus Christ, of Padre Pio, of Saint Michael the Archangel, and he would do battle with the crucifix and the holy water. So, again, whether you believe this or not, he had a career out of that. And the Conjuring franchise is all about, things like Amityville and, a spirit world, of demonic possession. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, the Catholic Church still has an exorcist, so.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And every diocese, at least in the United States,
Yeah.
has a Catholic priest who's schooled in the rite of exorcism. So
Oh, yeah, I think that's the same, nearly the same here in Europe, or at least they do exist. We know they exist. I'm not sure if they have a lot of work these days. I don't know.
yeah, that's
Maybe. Maybe they do. I don't know. We don't hear about them, but who knows, you know?
that's good.
Yeah.
Uh,
I wanted to I also wanted to ask you since
these aren't funny. These aren't funny topics, you know
no,
that.
no, not really, but you know, the funniest conversations are always the gruesome ones because believe it or not, the listeners, when you hear a crime authors talk on a panel, it's always the funniest time.
Yeah,
I mean, murder is not funny, but you know
yeah.
everything around it. I wanted to ask you since you also mentioned Yeti in your book about Bigfoot. So I suppose you have heard about the Austrian mountaineer Reinhold Messner, who supposedly saw this mystical creature when he was in, I think, on Mount Everest.
Yes, and I'm trying to think of boy, there were so many that have but do you have any other details? I know the name, and I'm trying to think what exactly he saw, or he might have
Mhm.
received some sort of a uh, uh, skull
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something, some remnant of this Yeti, this abominable snowman.
yeah. At least that's what he said. I mean, uh, he said, there was this article in 2019, and he said it's not a snow creature,
Oh, not a yeah,
but
not a bear.
yeah, yeah, but he said he comes from nature. Zoology says more like a bear, a special
Uh-huh.
kind of bear, according to him, or that's what he thinks it is. And this kind of bear only existed on the northern side of the Himalayan mountains.
Hmm.
And occasionally those special kind of bears also crossed to the other side, especially when they were looking for, a mate. And
Hmm.
then they have been photographed, and that's how he explains this encounter. So it's not a fantasy story, but more like a real existing animal, but rarely seen outdoors.
Right. Yeah, yeah. The best proof that we have of the existence of Bigfoot is the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film.
Hmm.
And these were two cowboys that were riding around in Northern California, and he had a camera, and they were making a documentary. They were hoping to make enough money to pay for an expedition to actually find Bigfoot. So Patterson was riding on the horse. He was the first one, and Gimlin was behind leading a pack horse. So they were in Northern California, and they were going around this area where Bigfoot tracks had allegedly been seen. Well, they're going around the corner, and all of a sudden they see a female Bigfoot. Now you could see the breasts, and they named it Patty afterwards, but the Patty turned and looked at Patterson and then kept on going. The video was only 58 seconds long, but this is the one that all the primatologists and anthropologists took a look at. The majority of them believe that it's a actual creature, not a man wearing a monkey suit. And one of the interesting things that happened with this, there was a British primatologist named John Napier, and he was with the Smithsonian Institute. John Napier in 1972 said that this Patterson-Gimlin video was a fake. And he said he thought it was a fake because the upper part of Patty was ape-like. The bottom part of Patty was hominid. It was bipedal. So he said that to put those two extremes together just was hoaxery. That was 1972. In 1974, they in Ethiopia they discovered Lucy. Now Lucy was man's earliest known ancestor, and it was Pithecus. It was named after the Beatles' Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. But Lucy had an upper body like an ape, very muscular for climbing the trees, and a bottom, a hominid, bipedal. So when John Napier, the primatologist, heard about this, he said, wait a second. He was a skeptic. And he said, no, wait, I believe this Patterson-Gimlin film is authentic based on what they just found in Ethiopia. So it was amazing how science came around and validated some of this. So the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967 is equivalent to the 2004 United States Navy Tic Tac video that they shot off the coast of San Diego. And this was a video of a UFO, solid. It was very maneuverable. The G-force was so extreme that humans couldn't withstand it. But it hovered and then it went underwater. So the Pentagon, who had changed the terminology from UFO to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, then changed it after it went underwater to unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So in America, we seem to be, there seems to be a push towards transparency as far as UFOs. And in July of 2023, they had a number of people testify in front of Congress. The most significant was David Grush. He was a former military intelligence who claims that he knows where the bodies are and he knows where the crashed vehicles are. And this was based on talking to, interviewing 40-some people, 40 government workers who were very reluctant to go on record, because if you're a government worker, you have a wonderful pension and you're making with good benefits, and you don't want to go and screw that up. So, but and they did it again just recently. They had another group of people talking about these UFOs. So they want the government to be more transparent and to share with us the information that they have. So, we'll see what happens. But one thing that Grush said that, connects with Europe is that he claims that in the 1930s, Mussolini found a flying saucer. Mussolini gave it to the Vatican, who gave it to the United States. So this is back in 1930. So I don't know. Do you have any information on that
I,
that you're not sharing with us?
It's the first time I hear about that, to be quite honest. I mean, maybe Mussolini gave them something. I mean, look, seeing how a bit he was, who knows what he gave them.
Yeah.
And what I would think is a bit unbelievable is the fact that the Vatican would give it to the Americans.
Yeah, okay.
I would say they would have kept it for themselves and would have buried it.
Okay.
That's what I would believe, but not handing it over to a foreign country, to a foreign government. That's what I couldn't believe. Therefore, it probably not. No.
Yeah. Okay. There's so many stories, so much conjecture, and somebody like me, I try to bring some kind of scientific validity or common sense to the field, and it's difficult because there's hoaxers out there that are looking for their 15 minutes of fame, and they make things up, and and they say things that are unbelievable, and frankly, I don't believe them. So they're a discredit to the paranormal community.
Is it then just their 15 minutes of fame, as Andy Warhol called it, or is it because they want to make a lot of money? They're grifters, or just for the thrill, for doing the con? Or what is it, in your opinion, that makes them do that? Their personality?
It's all three of them. I mean, the 15 minutes of fame, that they're important all of a sudden. Some may benefit financially, and there's been people in the Bigfoot community that claim they had a Bigfoot creature that turned out just to be a rubber suit, a monster suit, but they made money. Yeah. The other thing that I think probably the motivator more than anything else is these people are intelligent and they just want to pull something over on us. Like, for example, even with Jack the Ripper, the Ripper, for as horrible as he was playing games with Scotland Yard, saying, "Catch me if you can." He was daring them.
Mm,
And even the Zodiac killer in San
mm,
Francisco was
mm,
sending the newspapers um, clues to try to find me, try to catch me. So I think part of that is the game, the game that I'm smarter than you,
mm,
and I could go and pull this over. So there's a lot of variables, but I don't know. I in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I call out the hoaxers. I claim that they've sold their souls,
mm,
and there's nothing good about them. And I name a whole bunch of them. And we had just uh, the Piltdown Man in Great Britain was a good example
mhm,
of that. Um, this guy claimed that he found, the relic of um, the Piltdown Man, and there was all this nationalistic pride in
mhm,
Great Britain. So they wanted to have something that was older than the Heidelberg Man,
mhm,
which was found in Germany.
mhm,
So a lot of these scientists and politicians kept the hoax going until finally with special fluoride testing,
mm,
they found out that this Piltdown Man was a hoax. And what they did was they took it was the head of a human and the jaw of an orangutan with
mm,
teeth that were filed down to make them look human-like, and it was dusted with iron oxide, I believe, something to make it look older, and uh, and it was a hoax. But what they did was we spent so much time investigating this time that could have been better used, in the scientific realm. But this was on Great Britain, and it wasn't just the scientific community, but it was of the political community too. They wanted their ancient man. They wanted their
yeah,
Piltdown Man, and they wanted it to be older than the German Heidelberg Man. So and everybody was flying the flag of nationalism, and
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you are right. And this one-upmanship, this national
exactly,
one-upmanship, this,
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
ridiculous in a way. But yeah, I know what you mean. And it's sad to say it happens again and again, one way or the other.
mhm,
And
yeah.
those hoaxes, I mean, people come back to them, don't they? When you talk now about this, you know, finding out and finding this relics, it made me think of the Shroud of Turin, because even
Oh yeah,
back then in the Middle Ages, people or someone said it was more or less proven that it's a hoax, and yet we still keep on exploring, exploring, exploring. Come on, there's nothing to explore here, because it was even back then they knew it's not real or it wasn't real.
yeah,
Sorry, listeners, if you do believe,
yeah,
but it's not. Yeah,
yeah.
and this makes people do the strangest things. And the book you wrote before the book about Bigfoot is also interesting, about the coal region hoodoo, the
Oh,
paranormal tales from inside the pit. And you said it was also inspired, or tales about this thing in Pennsylvania, this wormhole, the Night of the Living Dead. I
oh
mean,
yeah, yeah.
zombies and so on. I mean, who doesn't love a good zombie movie? And also, you also mentioned the Philadelphia Experiment, which was a good film, by the way. Uh,
Yeah.
there is a lot in it, and uh, tell me a little bit about that, because I find it fascinating. Ed and Lorraine Warren feature in this book, I think, and also a serial killer features in it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, Pennsylvania is allegedly number 3 as far as Bigfoot sightings, and a lot of these take place in western Pennsylvania, an area called Chestnut Ridge. So, as a Pennsylvanian, I wanted to write a book that was Pennsylvania centric, but I wanted it to have appeal to everybody, people in Austria and Germany and all over the place. Um, Night of the Living Dead, the Blob, and the Philadelphia Experiment were all Pennsylvania centric. They were created in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And Night of the Living Dead from 1968 was ostensibly about zombies, but it was about what was happening in 1968, which was a horrific, horrific year. If you think 2024 is bad, I mean, thank God we don't have a time machine to go back to 1968. That's when Robert Kennedy was assassinated, Martin Luther King was assassinated, North Korea took over the American Pueblo. We had the Tet Offensive, where our General Westmoreland claimed that every province in South Vietnam was secure, and they had the Tet Offensive, where every single province in South Vietnam was overrun by the Viet Cong. And then we had after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, we had the um, Easter Sunday riots, where over 100 cities in America were burned and ransacked by a lot of African Americans who were just disgusted and angry and without hope. So 1968 was just showing how our society, our fabric was unraveling. The Chicago convention, they banned the Rolling Stones' Street Fighting Man. I mean, crazy stuff happening. So when I was writing the book, I wrote about Night of the Living Dead in sociological terms, and it wasn't so much about zombies, but it was about the society and everything. So anyway, it's that book. If your readers were to get on Amazon.com and look at Coleridge and Hoodoo, there are so many just like wonderful reviews that I get goosebumps. I get shivers from reading it. I mean, I can't believe that the book has been so well received and accepted. Um, One thing that happened to me, and this is like serendipity, but one of the chapters in the book is about Dr. Frederick Santee. He was a white witch. He was the high priest for the Coven of the Kata. And he lived 5 miles from where I live. I was friends with him. I interviewed him. But his coven was initiated by Sybil Leek. And Sybil Leek was the world's most famous witch. And what Sybil Leek did, after Great Britain repealed the Witchcraft Act in around 1952, Sybil Leek wrote a book about how to be a witch. And it opened up the doors to the whole world that you could go and practice witchcraft, which was, paganism. It was before Christianity. You're worshiping everything. It was pantheistic. It was something good. It wasn't with the devil. It wasn't demonic. And so when Sybil Leek came to Walpoleton, Pennsylvania to initiate the coven, she came with her son Julian and her publicist, because she was really into the PR. So she came there. And but anyway, here's what happened with me. I've been in this paranormal realm for 9 years. And it started in 2016 with my book, The Shepton Mythology. This past June 2nd, I was invited to a conference to do a presentation on Dr. Frederick Santee, the White Witch. There was a woman there, a New York City producer. This is the person I've been looking for all my life. And Sam Collins handed me her card. She goes, "I'd like to do a presentation on Dr. Santee." That was June 2nd. On August 9th, she came to Pennsylvania, and we did this film shoot, which is going to be premiered on Oculus Alchemy. And her show is called Oculus Alchemy. It's in New York. And then she's going to be premiering this then in Berwick, Pennsylvania, my hometown, at the Berwick Theater. And she believes that there's enough footage to do an extended documentary where we could take it around to some Tribeca and Sundance and all that. So I'm just so excited. I mean, after 9 years, doors have been opening, and how wonderful. I mean, to meet somebody, and here's the important thing, somebody that walks the talk, somebody that does actually do what they say they're going to do, not a wannabe, not a pretend person, but authentic person. So Sam and I have had numerous conversations about how we're going to conquer the world, and she wants to do a documentary on the Shepton mythology. That certainly, if that happens, I'd love to be back on your show and tell your listeners about that. So
Yeah, yes, please. I just found interesting what you said about zombies being a metaphor. I'm
yeah.
wondering, Because it's often said that art, reflects society, and so on. And do you think that at certain times, or how, or the fabric of society at certain times is the reason why certain genres are more successful at times than others? We're talking about fashion. I don't think it's fashion. I think it's a reflection of what
Yeah,
is going on in the real world.
yeah.
That's why.
And yeah, and if I could show you this, I don't know if you could see this. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, paranormal apocalypse. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it ends.
Is
Yeah.
this is how it ends? Yeah. So this is my next project, but I think that with and again, this is it's either political or religious or social. I mean, take your pick, or maybe sexual. I mean, what are the variables that that we can hang our hats on? But with the political spectrum, since we're taking this extreme right
Mm,
turn, at least in America, well, around
mm,
the world, I believe,
mm,
you know, there's a lot of people that are starting to read dystopian literature,
yeah.
apocalyptic literature. So I believe that this is a good time for me to dive into the waters and talk about how's it ending. So I'm taking a look at the apocalypse through a religious lens, a sociological lens, a political lens, talking about people like
Mm,
H.P. Lovecraft and Charles or George Adamski and all this. So I'm putting some stuff together that is really very tasty and juicy, and I'm just having a lot of fun with it. And I think this is going to be, to answer your question, I think, I think I got the groove right. I mean, this is a
mm,
good time to do this. I think the vibrations are there. So I think this is going to be the right time to get this book out there.
mm. I think it has been over the last 10 years or so that dystopian novels are more successful than utopian ones. And it makes me think what you said about the 60s, especially 68. And we have these different kinds of shows of looking at the future. I'm a huge fan of Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie. I admit
Yeah,
it.
okay, yeah.
And I always enjoyed this positive outlook Gene Roddenberry had on the future. I mean, I loved
Mm,
it, the way he saw the future and the positivity. And
mhm,
like you just said, in recent years there has been so much dystopian views of the future, and
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish
Well,
I wish him back. I wish he was back. I mean, even when I look at the most recent shows of Star Trek, it's all going more dark.
yeah. Yeah. Well, my book, I want to say this, that Paranormal Apocalypse is going to have a happy ending. So if that means anything, but that's the purpose. I mean, we have to have hope and optimism. If we don't, what's the use? Why go on? I mean, really,
Yeah.
why go on? If we, but this is so great to be able to go and talk about these themes and give them parameters. And, for a paranormal author, I mean, I don't know how much time we've spoken about the paranormal. We've talked about everything, but it's all encompassing. It's all encompassing,
Yeah.
and everything is everything. So, that's kind of good. So, um,
Yeah, but the paranormal, like you said, it's all encompassing. It's there when people write horror. It's there when people write other genres, even in fiction. It's there. It's not just about nonfiction, like you said, from the academic point of view, but it's there in the pop culture, isn't it?
oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, um, when you talk about any of those themes, I mean, look how people like H.G. Wells and Jules
Mm,
Verne and H.P. Lovecraft wrote about this and gave us the visions. And Jules Verne, I mean, man, what a mastermind, what a brilliant person, to be able to talk about these things. So they, and as a kid I read every single one of those books. I mean, like, I was filled with those
mm,
visions and that adventure.
mm,
The other thing, to answer your question, Edith, why do we do this? I think for a lot of us, there's part of us, we all have this Indiana Jones in us, where we have to go out there
Mm.
and discover and maybe conquer and find that holy grail. And I mean, I just think that's part of our, spirit of adventure. I mean, it's a good thing, and I think we all do that in one way or the other. I mean, I think that's one really good way to hang on to your youth, to keep that search alive, keep looking for whatever it is. So, you know, I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm a former rock journalist. Um, I put the book, the Shepton Mythology came out in 2016. It's been 9 years. And that
Mhm.
book opened up the doors to the paranormal realm. It was
Mm.
totally unexpected. I wasn't looking for the paranormal. It found me. It stalked me and found me. And that was just, you know, pretty amazing. I mean, to this day, I look at it. I mean, but it was meant to be. It was meant to be. So, I'm perfect, fine,
So are
just
you,
enjoying.
yeah, but are you more Agent Mulder or Agent Scully?
Probably a little bit of both. That's good. I want to believe. I
Okay.
need that poster behind you. Yes. Yeah. I love
Yes.
that show. That was such a good show.
Oh,
Yeah. And then
yes. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. Yeah, because you also mentioned it in your book, and I thought, yes, yes, yes. I want to believe the truth is out there, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
and do you think that it takes a lot, or it needs a lot of curiosity? You have to be curious about what's going on around you. Do you think that in these days, like you said, youthfulness, yeah, youth is wasted on the young. We all know that, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
do you think that social media is hampering, damping down the curiosity in the young ones?
It's my understanding that even though there's that instant connection with the technology, that a lot of youth are maybe in front of their computer screens rather than being in front of their friends. So there may
Mm.
not be that one-on-one human interaction,
Mm.
so that there may be a trade-off with the technology. So there's that aspect. The other aspect is that I think I know a bunch of young people. I mean, they're really young, and they are overachievers. I mean,
Mm.
I think because of the technology, they were able to go and
Mm.
stand on a platform that opened up the world to them, and boom, they became
Mm.
successful. Now, it wasn't just the technology. It was, they had drive and everything else,
Yeah.
but the technology was a key point. And I think that was maybe the difference between some of these young guys and somebody like me who's been in the trenches for a while, which again, I'm not complaining in any
Mm.
respect, because I've had a wonderful, wonderful ride and career, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So, um, but I think technology, everything changes, whether we like it or not. The hardest thing is to adapt to the changes. We remember the good old days when things were maybe a little bit more peaceful and tranquil and made sense, and all of that. But you adapt to change. And with the technology, if we could embrace, and look at this. I mean, imagine this. I mean, how new? I mean, when this has been? How old is this kind of technology? Like what? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, how wonderful! I mean, I'm still like just in awe that I'm talking to somebody from Austria. I mean, just So uh, anyway, this is good, and I will. I'm going to warn you. I'm going to stalk you. I'm going to go and ask for an additional interview. So
You're
so look
always
out.
welcome. Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome. You know where to find me. I'm just asking. I've just been asking you this because I had this conversation only, I think 2 days ago with some students of mine. One of the girls asked me, "Do you use ChatGPT?" And I said, "No, I've never used ChatGPT." And she looked at me, totally surprised. Said, "I never had the need to use it. Why should I use it? There is no need for me to use it." And we talked about what's going to happen in the future and about, AI and so on. And maybe we do underestimate the danger. And some people say, also guests on my show said, yeah, well, the ghost is out of the bottle, and maybe it's too late to rein it in, and where will it lead us? Can we still control it? Will we be able to control it? Our politicians are probably useless because they don't know anything about anything.
Yeah. Yeah, we agree with that. Yeah. With AI as a writer, there's groups, there's companies that'll go and just write the book for you. You could go and jump on that AI, and it's just so wrong and so unethical. And God, I don't want to do that. I won't do that. I mean, that's just like not, my creativity. I take pride in my writing and, my ability to write and my creativity. And I will not go and, sully that with AI. I mean, that's just goes against everything I believe in. But I know people are out there that are utilizing it because it's quick and easy.
Yeah.
And, it's a shortcut. And I think that's a problem. That's a problem. So, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be books that are generated by AI. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know if we can turn it back, and I don't think we can. Like I said, I think the genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. And to put it back again, I'm not sure it's possible. And like I said, our politicians are useless in this regard. I don't know. And it made me think, because we spoke about, like we said, dystopian reality. And I said, do you know the film Terminator?
Yeah,
where humans,
of course.
Humans are the flaw in the system, and they have to be terminated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a scary thought. Yeah, like hell. Yeah. I don't know. These are gloomy thoughts, but we're going to figure out a way to deal with that, and I don't know how. But even in Hollywood, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, is, after he dies, I mean, he has a lawsuit pending in case anybody tries to go and use his image, through AI. So he'll sue beyond the grave. So he already talked about that. But it's a problem, and I don't know. Well, even in the recording business, I'm a former rock journalist, and there's microphones that'll raise your voice to a certain octave. I mean, there's people going to the studio and everything is just beautiful and pitch perfect. And this is the technology. And then couple that with, they do their search for the prettiest boys and girls, musicians. And so what you have these Las Vegas type bands that are out there that are just very good looking, but and it's all computer generated, AI music. So there's a lot of musicians that have spoken out against that, because again, it goes against, the honesty and the honorable tradition of making music, the right way. So this has been in the music industry for a while. Now it's coming into literature and cinema and who knows what else. But
And that's the sad thing, because I mean, everything, or a lot of things coming from the United States, are already way too perfect, especially in film and TV. Those actors, they look perfect. Nobody looks like that all the time. I mean, seriously. Yeah. And there is this one British actress. Can't remember her name yet now at the moment, but she has this burned shoulder, this burned upper arm, and so on. And I often said, okay, she's wearing your, off the shoulder clothes and so on. And I often said to the teacup, she wouldn't have a career in the United States. It doesn't say anything about her talent, or if she's good or not. She is good. She's fascinating. But looking like that, with this flaw in her appearance, she wouldn't have made it. But in my opinion, that's what also makes her interesting. Those actors, mostly from Europe, sorry again, dear listeners, but that's the way I see it. they are not perfect, and that's what makes them interesting, because they look like everyone else. You can relate to them. You can't relate to people who always look perfect and you always look young at the age of 60 and so on. Come on, that's not real.
Yeah. So Hollywood doesn't get it, but the literary world does, because all of these protagonists have flaws. They're humans. They feel pain, So that, I mean, that's what you do. So they're relatable.
Yeah.
So I think the cinema is just more entertainment. They don't care if you could relate to it. What I liked about European cinema, especially late 60s, early 70s, was the cinema verte, that live thing, that live feel, that grainy thing, that just, maybe black and white, that would just taught American filmmakers that you could do this too, So that was just like, that was pretty amazing. A lot of Italian films like that. So, but that was because, but yeah, it's nice how we trade back and forth. And when I was growing up as a teenager, I mean, the Beatles hit, and the Beatles just took over. I mean, you couldn't get away from it. I mean, they had so many hit singles and albums and everything else. It was just, I mean, it changed. I mean, literally and figuratively and symbolically changed the world. It really did. It was just an amazing cultural thing that my group, the baby boomers, got caught up in, that euphoria, just everything. I mean, just, I can't describe how powerful it was, and how every one of us, picked up a guitar and wanted to have our own band. So just amazing, and then we bounced it back and it went back and forth and all that. So just, really, really interesting, cultural gifts that we give one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. Maxim, it's fascinating talking to you. Absolutely lovely.
And you as well. I didn't know if we were going to have anything to talk about. I was like, oh boy. I was thinking that you were thinking that I just write fiction. And I'm thinking, oh, she's going to be so disappointed. No, I was thinking at first that you made a mistake, by inviting me. So.
No, absolutely not. But let me ask you, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
Yeah, if they would want to contact me, I have a website. It's www.maximfurek.com, MAXIMFUREK. Please feel free to contact me. We can chat. I'd be glad to offer you, an autographed book, although I don't know what it's going to cost me to ship on the boat to Europe. So.
A fortune, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe you want to get them from Amazon. But but I would like, if there's any paranormal groups or people interested in the paranormal, I certainly would love to chat and touch base with you. And I just can't thank you enough, Edith, for this opportunity to, to talk to your folks and, and to talk about some of my views that hopefully, are of interest to others.
I'm sure they are, as they were of interest to me. So thank you so much for doing this. Please don't go away. Wait for me in the green room, and I will be with you shortly.
Okay, very good. I will wait.
Dear listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this episode as much as my guest and I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you will tune in again for another episode. Until next time.